So this is the second challenge. This is the technical challenge, which is required of 12 chocolate mini rolls. The requirements of the mini rolls are 12 chocolate mini rolls made of a delicate chocolate sponge, a swirl of peppermint buttercream, and covered in chocolate. They say you can have a bare bottom, which means it doesn't have to be decorated, but they prefer if you do. To make the mini rolls, the bakers have been given the same ingredients with one of Prue's basic recipes. James has made a Swiss roll 2 weeks ago, but the others have not made before. Prue says that they must rely heavily on the eggs to help make the sponge rise, and must look out for the strength of the peppermint they add to the buttercream, otherwise they are in danger of tasting like toothpaste. The instructions given are to make a paste with cocoa butter, vanilla and 4 teaspoons of water. Then they must whisk the egg yolks with 2/3 of sugar and whisk with the remaining sugar. Then gently fold in the two. They have been given no instructions on how to bake them. They need to make the buttercream, therefore they also have no instructions in relation to how much peppermint essence they should use. So they must taste as they go, adding a little at a time. Chris and Stacey have needed to start again as they flop. The others melt dark chocolate over a bowl to make the sauce. Peter admits to making a mistake adding white chocolate to the milk chocolate and thinks he can do something with it, even spreading of the sponge, and then roll each end to meet in the middle. James has scored it to make it easier to roll. Even spreading of the sponge and then roll each end to meet in the middle. James has scored it to make it easier to roll. Jan is using a piece of paper to help roll. Jan has a sticking roll. The same applies to Liam. At this moment, Chris and Stacey then proceed to take their sponges out of the oven. Then proceed to evenly cut the sponge into 12 equal portions. Jan mentions her sponges are uneven, so by cutting off a centimetre from each side, it becomes an even 6 centimetres each. In the folding process, Liam has managed to destroy his roll. The white chocolate is then used to decorate. Now for the judging. To start, they have Jan's mini rolls. Paul explains Jan there is white chocolate on the top. They are all fairly even in size. It's got a proper swirl. The sponge is good, but the peppermint buttercream is a little too strong. They then move on to Julia's mini rolls. Paul explains this is certainly rougher. They haven't been cut properly, though there is a very good swirl. The sponge is good, and the balance of the peppermint buttercream is good. The next contestants they look at is Flo's. They explain the roll is quite small, so they should be quite good. The sponge is not like a sponge and more like a ganache. This means that it hasn't been cooked long enough. They then move on to Stacey's mini rolls. Paul says these look kind of messy, but they like the feathering effect of the white chocolate. They say that it needed a bit longer in the oven. Well, that's understandable, considering that this is the second make of her sponge. By the time she got round to this stage, she had to think about getting at least something out, otherwise she would have come last. They move on to Peter's mini rolls. Paul has mentioned this one's decided to use a different colour of chocolate, and he's not getting the peppermint flavour. So obviously not enough peppermint essence was used to begin with. They move on to Kate's mini rolls. They explain that it has a nice swirl, the sponge and the size are all good. They move on to Liam's. They explain that it doesn't have much of a swirl, it's more like a C. It's also far too strong with the peppermint. They move on to Tom's mini rolls. They explain that the chocolate is nicely coated. They have all the same size, but as you can see, there is practically no swirl in them. They follow this on with Chris's mini rolls. They haven't been covered. The chocolate looks to have been lobbed on from 10 feet. These are comments made by Paul. They say it's an interesting swirl. It's obviously not been cooked long enough. It's very squashed and very thin. Same situation really with Stacey. Both had been thrown, and a second additional bakers had to be done, therefore eating into their time. They move on to James' mini rolls. They explain that these look neater, they are the same size. There's a little swirl, but it generally has a good sponge. They move on to Sophie's mini rolls. They explain that there is too much mint flavour and not a lot of swirl. The final mini rolls belong to Stephen. They have a sort of feathered effect, which Paul enjoys. He also makes a comment in regards to them being chunky monkeys, as in they're a bit too big for a standard mini roll. He says that the sponge is good, but it generally looks denser than they are. So it's now time to reveal the rankings of the 12 contestants. In last place, 12th place, is Chris. They commented and said that the sponge was still raw. 11th place was Stacey. The sponge mix was not cooked properly. It was probably only slightly better than Chris's, that's why it was placed there. 10th place was Peter. Paul makes a remark to Peter saying, "Why have we got milk chocolate on the top, not white?" Peter's response was, "It was just a mistake." 9th place is Flo, no explanation given. 8th place is Liam, no explanation given. 7th place is Tom, again, no explanation. 6th place, Stephen. 5th place, Sophie. 4th place, Jan. 3rd place, Julia. They commented that it had a lovely swirl. 2nd place was James. They said very neat. Love the white lines on the top, so the decoration. And in 1st place was Kate. They explained all the same size. The peppermint was finely balanced and it was perfectly made. So, what do you guys think? Did you think anyone was cheated out of their position? Did you expect anyone in particular to be the rate they were? Did you think anyone deserved particularly higher than they were given? Let me know in the comment sections below. Please subscribe and please click the bell for notifications. And as always, thank you for taking the time to watch the video. And